my seminar. Thank you for coming to my seminar at MIT. It's my first time being here. I feel very excited, especially with so many people in different disciplines. I think I will learn a lot from today's talk. Now let me find out the slides. Or let's see how can I share the screen. Yeah, here we go. Sorry. Yeah, let's go to the first slide. We can share it now. Share screen. Ooh. Just give me more minute. Not very good at it. Okay, I hope you can see it. Not sure if you can see it. Present to everyone. Yeah, now it's working better. So my talk is about energy efficiency and energy consumption. The title is Complex Effects of Energy Efficiency Improvements on Energy Consumption. And my focus is on analyzing the rebound effect. I'm a student at the School of Economics from the University of Queensland, which is in Australia. I found many people don't know where Queensland is, so I might introduce myself. And now I'm going to do the report at the joint program on the science and policy of climate change at MIT. First, I will talk about the motivation. Second, I will go through the modeling of this policy or climate policy using a CGE or computable general equilibrium modeling. And let me first go through the carbon emissions in Australia, the background. Australia, in fact, is one of the largest carbon emitters in the world in terms of per capita or per person emissions. For example, in 2011, the emissions per capita in Australia is 16.6 metric tons, closely following the USA's 17 metric tons. In 2006, Australia's emissions per capita is even larger than the United States. And the transport sector accounts for around more than 15% of the total emissions. Light vehicles alone accounts for 10%. Therefore, in 2014, the Climate Change Authority of Australia proposed the mandatory light vehicle emission standards to reduce the emissions. And this is the year when I began my study at the University of Queensland, and also I began to do a bit of research on this. So what is the light vehicle emission standards? It now haven't been implemented, but it is a mandatory standard. It requires new car fuel efficiency reducing from current level 192 grams per kilometer to 105 grams per kilometer in 2025. This is equivalent to the fuel economy standards, which has been widely adopted by countries like the United States or China, Japan. The equivalent fuel economy standards is 8.3 liters per 100 kilometers in 2013 to 4.5 liters per 100 kilometers in 2025. As you might know, Australia is lag behind many countries in the climate policy implementation. In this table, all the countries has implemented the fuel efficiency policy in some year. For example, the United States is the oldest or the first in the world that proposed this policy or legislated this policy in 1975. Australia is the only one that hasn't. Australia is the first one in the world that abandoned climate policy, the carbon tax, if you remember, by the Abbott government. That is not a good thing. In all other parts, Australia is lag behind. And looking at the table, we find in European Union has the most stringent target, and the CO2 target in the last two columns are the equivalent, either measured by grams per kilometer or liters per 100 kilometers. Also, another measurement is by miles per gallon. If we invert, it's similar to this fuel efficiency, but used in the United States. But accurately should be gallons per mile, miles per gallon, the gallons per mile, because this is how much measures how much gas used in a certain distance. And even this, Australia has the lines between Japan, China, and the U.S. target. Well, the benefits of the proposed standards as specified by the Climate Change Authority is that it helps the consumers save money by saving fuel savings, and from reduction in overall CO2 emissions, and thus help Australia to save money by preventing CO2 emissions. Well, this policy has there are many problems. However, there are some problems with this policy. For example, the most obvious problem I find is that if the motorist find it costs less to drive a more efficient car, will they drive more? Will they drive more? Because the cost is lower. The cost of driving a car is lower, or the price or the effective price of fuel decreases. And this is captured by the direct rebound effect. Few economists, or many economists, have researched in this area, starting by Kazum, 1960s, 1980s. The second question is, if they do save money on fuel, will they spend? How will they use their savings? Will they spend the energy, the savings on other energy consuming appliances or services, like taking a holiday out in Australia, flying to Australia. This is called the indirect rebound effect. And economists like Sorrell Hanley has done, and my research is from me. Both covers both the direct and the indirect rebound. And to motivate you the rebound, I can tell you a joke. Well, the best way to tell a joke is not to say, I'm going to tell a joke. So I'm going to tell you a story, a true story. That is by a friend. A friend of mine is a philosopher. He told me one day that his economist friend, not me, another economist, asked him why he paid more on his electricity bills after he bought a more efficient fridge. The philosopher simply asked him, "What's the size of your fridge?" The economist answered, "Twice as big." So you find that even when we think we are using energy more efficiently, we can end up using more of it. Suppose this is the direct rebound, because it's direct because the efficiency of fridge improves and the economists use more of the fridge, or the use of the fridge. So the indirect rebound happens in the other energy appliances or energy or services. For example, the economists learn a lesson from this experience. The next time he bought a more efficient car, and he didn't drive much. He still drives from home to work and back home. So he does save some money, but he used this saved money on, say, on an overseas trip to Australia, and he spends all his savings. Maybe that's too much. You see, it's only 8:30. But flying the round trip from Brisbane to Los Angeles is around 1,500 US dollar, Australian dollars. That's almost that's around $830. So he spent his annual savings from a fuel-efficient car on an overseas air flight. And this will cause the energy consumption or energy or carbon emissions from the other sectors. So that's not directly related to it, it's indirect. So it's called indirect rebound. And the indirect rebound can come in all other ways, that is convenient or inconvenient. For example, when people drive more, the tires are being used more, so they might need more tires. And producing tires needs energy. And also when they drive more, they might change their preference. Now they like to take a holiday road trip and stay in a motel, so the demand for the hotel service increases. Thus increase the energy consumption, and consequently the energy carbon emissions. I find that the rebound effect can date back to the 19th century by British economist Carl Jevons. In his book, The Coal Question, Jevons argued that it is a confusion of ideas to suppose that economical use of fuel is equivalent to diminished consumption. The very contrary is the truth. He gives in his book, gives this graph, make it bigger. And what he observed is the Industrial Revolution period by this shaded area. So the energy consumption or coal consumption increases, and so is population. Imports population imports. He projects that in 2000 or 1970s, the coal consumption by Britain would be 200 billion. Yeah. And hopefully that now Britain only consumes around 400 million. Yeah. From here to here. So he thinks that it is, well, it's not sustainable. Because he doesn't believe that we have so much coals, but in fact we find many other resources of oil, petrol, and natural gas, all kinds of oils. So these didn't happen, but he observed that in the Industrial Revolution, the steam engine improved the energy efficiency, but energy consumption increases. So, and it's captured by it's called Jefferson paradox. So there are probably only three possibilities of an energy efficiency improvement. The first one is the mechanical effect or the engineering effect. And many engineers would argue what the benefit energy efficiency improvement would bring is it reduces the demand for fuel, and it directly lead to energy saving. But there are two other effects that are mostly neglected by politicians or engineers, and I call it behavioral effect. So for example, second point is the technology reduces the effective price of fuel and thus encouraging factor substitution. You can understand it like when fuel is being more efficiently used in a factory. So if the firm can use other like labor or capital, can use it in replace of labor, it will encourage him to use more of it. If there is substitutability. This is a bit abstract, I guess. And for a car, driving a car, usually it's not substitutable. In economics, we call it's a Leontief technology. When we drive a car, we have to put a certain amount of labor. Someone has to drive it, and we have to put in certain amount of fuel or gasoline. These two are not substitutable, but in some occasions, labor or other fuel and other things might be substitutable. Then this is the substitution effect. We'll use more. The third is that the technology would lower the cost of intermediate bundle. That's encouraging expansion. Well, what does it mean is also implied by cost. So, well, we can think of that as cost of production. In economics, we usually assume the market is competitive. So if the firm can use less fuel to produce something, they reduce their cost. And also, the price of the product also decreases. So the cost is related to the price. The cost of the producer is related to the market. So if your product is is cheaper, then people will buy more of it. That's the output effect or income effect. Say we can drive a more efficient car, so we feel we have more money now. Then that's the income effect. And the rebound effect is captured by this ratio, the behavioral effect over mechanical effect. So the rebound effect explains how much of the energy savings has been ruined by the behavioral change. The theoretical foundations of the rebound. I know you all like equations, so now I'm going to take you to the equations side. We just use a very simplified, stylized production function to illustrate the three possibilities, how the three possibilities interact with each other. We assume the firm only produce one product using energy as input and all other intermediate input also. Now I assume all labor, it includes labor, capital, and all other materials like steel, plastic, everything. And now I set up the cost minimization problem. It's the core concept. The core concept in economics is minimization, or it's called minimization, but I think it is optimization. It's all about optimization, and for the firm, the optimization problem is the cost minimization problem. It tries to lower its cost. That's all a firm is concerned about. The objective is to minimize its cost, or the price of the aggregate all the other input into one bundle. This is xi. X1 and X2 is energy. So the price of all the other input times the quantity of all other input plus the price of energy times the consumption of energy, or the physical quantities of energy consumed. And subject to this production function, I assume this production function is CES, constant elasticity of substitution. So it allows substitution between the energy and this intermediate input bundle. If you don't like the substitution idea, you can just set the parameters rho, the substitutability parameter, elasticity of substitution to 0. So this one, there's no substitutability. But now here is it allows the substitutability. So for x gives the demand function for each input. And here P average, P average can be understood as the cost of the production process, or the price of this product. Use these two and produce these. So how does a tech change affect the demand? We need to introduce the technology change term, and we also and now I need to do some tricks to analyze these. First trick is to total differentiate, or called linearization. Total differentiate equation 1, then divide by x. Total differentiate this equation and divide it by x on both sides. And I now define a small term, or lowercase xi, which equals to dxi divided by xi. And this is the percentage change form denoted by xi. So is y. So is y, and I use small y to denote percentage change, small p to denote percentage change in price. It's the first trick I did. And the second trick I did is to introduce the technical saving term. So now the big xi is equal to the xi over ai, and pi is equals to the original price times the energy saving term. So as I grew smaller, like ai becomes smaller, effective xi becomes bigger. Or we can see from here, if like ai is smaller, greater than 1, what we care is how AI change. So if AI is growing, because when it is a technical saving term, because when AI gets smaller, the energy consumed is getting less. And the linearized form, which though we change these, but the cost minimization problem remains the same, the big xi times p. still is the same. The linearized form is really simple, shown as equation 2. So the small xi, let me go through it again, is the percentage change in demand for intermediate input I. And this term is technical change. If technology improves, this term should be negative. So we can use less energy. Or if we put this term into the other side, this is the direct mechanical effect. And this is the output effect. How the expansion, how the output expands. And the second part here is the substitution effect. The sigma is the substituted elasticity of substitution. So the effective price of the second P plus AI is the effective price of fuel, and minus the cost, the overall cost. So if suppose all other parts remain the same, and we see the price, the average, because here is an AI, and the price is become smaller, then minus sigma would become larger, right? Because it's minus. This term becomes smaller, and this term becomes larger, then energy would be consumed more. Now let's only look at energy consumption, and now let's only think of what happens to energy efficiency improvement and no other improvement in other factors. So we can keep A2 here, but A1 is the technology improvement term for other input jobs. Equation 2 becomes this equation here, and the subscript 2 denotes the energy consumption, the energy bundle. And the average price, average is share-weighted sum of these. And it can also reduce to this part. And so the final change of energy consumption is a result of this term, the technical change, and the expansion, the output effect, and the substitution effect. So these are all the three possibilities we discussed at the beginning, and now it's all shown in this equation. So this part is negative, so when there's an energy efficiency improvement technology happen, it reduces the energy consumption. And this part is positive, and remember 1 is S2, A2 is negative, so negative times negative is positive. We can further analyze the break-even condition. What does that mean?